we have a lot of major arcanas in our reading for this week, which is why I say it is likely going to be a pivotal week. And the cards that decided to show up today are reflective of some of the energies that we have going on in the sky, of course, right? So if you look inward, which perhaps a lot of us have been doing, we've kind of been in this long winter that has been more than just a single season, and it put a lot of us in a space of isolation and really looking things over, and kind of withdrawing from our environment and doing this kind of internal work and reflecting on where we want to go and where we want to put our attention. And we have the opening energy of the Hermit today, a person who is holding a lantern at the very top of the mountain. And the Hermit can be telling of an energy of Virgo energy, which is, a preventative health and our day-to-day routines, which a lot of us are likely reflecting on as we go under these different pressures and this shift of energy by way of seasons. A lot of things are moving a lot faster, which is interesting because we're actually, in Taurus season, which has a really stable energy. And yet we have all of these planets up in Taurus, which is kind of stirring that earth, which is why we see all of these things breaking ground, quite literally, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And we're breaking ground within us too. Now, the Hermit is also associated with the energy of Chiron. And the Chiron energy is our wounded healer, or our sacred healer, depending on the verbiage that you like to go with. And it's that inner wound that we've carried our whole life that we've had to learn how to heal. And by healing that wound, we can really serve other people, which is why Chiron is associated with Virgo energy, which has that service kind of orientation. Now, our challenge that showed up today is the Empress, which is associated with Venus energy. The way through the challenge came in by way of the Emperor, which is an Aries, Mars kind of energy. And right now, actually today, Venus just moved into the sign of Cancer. So we have this nurturing kind of friend moving into this place of memory, right, around the family and our tribe, and because Cancer rules that area of our lives just in general. And, it's important to note for those of you who get frustrated with me mentioning all these zodiac signs, that every one of us has every single zodiac sign in our chart, which means that we also have it in our lives and in some place of how we show up in the world. So if you look at your natal chart, kind of like there's 12 different rooms of your house, 12 different houses, right? But if you look at them as rooms within your own personal house, right, of being, what energies are in each of those houses are going to shape you. And of course, wherever those planets are placed is setting some kind of anchor for your attention and for your work in this lifetime. So the reason why I bring that up is because we're all doing a lot of work right now in the realm of our development of self, because we have Chiron sitting in Aries energy, and the Aries energy is the I am of self, and they are the I am of the zodiac. Aries is where everything gets birthed, as far as seasons into the world, and Taurus is where they start to grow. So we have this Aries energy sitting here, and this is an energy that in reflection of how it's showing up as the way of getting through the challenge, it's asking us to make order out of the chaos. So, it's interesting in our culture because we put a lot of weight on the mind, which is interesting because it's the element of air. And yet we put a lot of weight on how we interact with the world and how we show up in the world and how we even show up to ourselves by way of whatever internal dialogue we have in our mind. And for whatever reason, particularly in, the US of A, a lot of people have like negative internal dialogue, and it may likely be sourced from some kind of conditioning or, childhood wound or some kind of scar that you carry and reflect on consistently in your life. But we have a lot of support that is showing up in this coming week to give us some help in that, because, as I said, Venus just moved into the sign of Cancer, right? Because there's 12 little pieces, as I said, in the natal chart wheel. And, ooh, look, Neptune just fell out. Don't want Neptune to fall out. Venus just moved into the sign of Cancer. We also, interestingly enough, have Mars up in Cancer as well. Now, that's interesting to me because, and this is because, we also have Saturn over in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces, which is another water sign. I had mentioned that Chiron is over here in Aries. There's another player on the table today, which I want to point out and is really particularly of use in what's coming in through today, because the ultimate outcome showed up as the Magician. And the Magician is associated with Mercury. Mercury is currently retrograde right now over in Taurus, right? It started going retrograde the beginning parts of May. It's retrograding through Taurus, and it will, over the next week, come to a close meeting point to the North Node. And the North Node is like the North Star. It's showing us where we need to be putting our energy and our attention, okay? And so we have the North Node sitting there. Mercury is going back to kind of come into a conversation with the North Node. And it will be going direct again on the 15th of May, so in just about a week, which is why I think it's interesting that these cards are showing up. Because when it does go direct, right, Mercury will be up here in the beginning parts of Taurus. And by that time, Venus will have moved a few more degrees, and at that point, Venus will be in trine relationship to Saturn. Mars will have moved forward a little bit and will be in trine relationship to Pisces. Okay, so we have this like double trine thing happening between these four energies, and they're in a lot of ways showing us that we have to be clear about our dreams and our illusions and be sober to what we want to build in our life and where we need to put that energy and effort and how we are going to go about nurturing it and nourishing it, because there's that interesting relationship between Venus and Saturn in the water signs. Now, as I was saying before, like the energy up in Taurus is really interesting though, because Mercury is in this space of retrograde right now, which is like telling us to slow down, like cool your horses. Like you may feel like you know exactly where your course is plotted this year, but things are about to change, and they are going to change for the better the quicker you get out of your own way. Because Mercury is all about how we see things and realizing that we have, all the tools. We just have to align ourselves to put them to the best use, particularly in the sense of the Magician. And when you are feeling like you're not really sure, like you feel some kind of hesitation, that's your nervous system that's being really kind of rattled up by the mind, but your body is giving you this anchor of resistance and hesitation, because it's like, wait, it's not time yet. It's kind of like some people wanted to plant seeds like a month ago on our first sunny day, right? But people who are experienced gardeners are like, wait, it's not time yet. Because if the ground is frozen, that seed is going to go to waste. So you have to wait for things to align and come into timing for things to actually grow in the direction of a bountiful harvest. So the clarity that was behind the Magician showed up by the Page of Cups, which is again reflective of that energy in Pisces, and also the reflection in our own being of what we need to recognize and also work on in ourself before we can actually, move forward into this direction. And it's also mentioning like this kind of letting go aspect of this dissolving time that we're going through right now. I was talking to someone yesterday at one of the fairs I was vending at, and they were like, God, I just feel like, I'm in this like churning process. And And the waters right now are really rapid. They can wash you downstream, right? When you have so much water that is being pushed down a single little narrow passageway, it actually will start to tear more ground and, create new trenches that we have to learn how to transverse. So there's this energy right now that is in this waiting. Now, in about 7 days, in 7 days actually, on the 15th, when Mercury goes direct again, that will be this time where things will start moving forward again, and things will really start to flow, especially because then we're going to have Jupiter move into Taurus just a couple of days later, and it will be adding a very big energy into wherever Taurus is in your natal chart, because it has this expansion energy. And at that point, we're going to have the sun there. We're going to have Mercury there. I'm sorry, the sun will be out of Taurus at that point. It'll be in Gemini. But we'll have, still Uranus up there. And when Jupiter actually hits Uranus and comes into conjunction with Uranus, which will be a little bit later in May, we'll really start to see the big changes come into play. So what is it right now that you still have to tend to before you can move forward? Because the Two of Wands is like telling us that we're standing on this balcony looking out upon our dominion and feeling this call to do something very different than what we've done in the past. And I think that's an evolution of ourselves, especially with this energy of Chiron up in Aries, asking us to level up. And of course, with the support of Saturn, Venus, Neptune, and Mars. So it'll be an interesting week. I like to invite people to look at astrology in a way that it's like being able to observe an energy that we can put to use, or that we can at least recognize in our lives. And if you consider, there's these 12 little rooms in your sense of self, and you have these planets that are, by way of timing, syncing up with where your planets were placed when you were born, you can start to observe some really interesting things. And for me, it's just helped to take the mind out of it, and also allow the mind to be in observation rather than in a place of certainty. Because there's a lot of astrologers out there that speak from a place of certainty, when really, in time, there's always the variable of the unknown. And the mind is pretty limited in that area. It can also be expansive in that area, depending, of course, where you put your perspective and where you put your attention. I send you all a lot of love and a good wish. If you'd like to see any of the products that I take around to fairs, check out my website, rootsofalchemy.com. And if you'd like to get a reading, look at your astrology, or get a tarot reading or AstroTarot reading, you can also access me that way as well through my services and consultations link. And other than that, I send you a good wish. I hope you're enjoying life wherever you are. Be kind to you and those around you. Much love. Bye for now.